Jesse Galganov. Jesse Galganov was a Canadian citizen and student who had just graduated in May 2017 from Wesleyan University in Connecticut, where he studied mathematics and completed pre-med requirements. He had been accepted to med school in Sidney Kimmel Medical College at Thomas Jefferson University in Philadelphia. Jesse had a dual citizenship of the US and Canada and lived with his mother in Montreal. He was an experienced hiker and traveler, and it was his dream to hike the Santa Cruz Trail in Peru. So after graduating, he decided to go on a solo trip to South America and Southeast Asia before he was to attend the med school. He planned on backpacking to Santa Cruz Trail first, then go to Southeast Asia, after which he would return home to attend the med school at Thomas Jefferson University. He spent his entire summer researching and planning out his trip. The plan was, following his travels in South America, that he would fly to Asia in December, eventually ending his trip in Bangkok on May 15th. Some of the items he brought were hiking shoes, a one-person tent, a mattress, a small stove, utensils, clothing, a headlamp, medication, his Kindle, and a journal. In total, his backpack weighed 24 pounds. On September 24, 2017, Jesse's mother, Elisa Clement, drove Jesse to the airport to board a flight to Peru and start what was to be an 8-month travel adventure. He soon arrived in Lima and stayed at a local hostel for 3 nights. Jesse and her mother were in constant contact, and he asked her to download traveling books for him on his Kindle to read. On September 28th, he took a bus to Juarez, Peru, where he stayed at a backpacker's hostel. On the same day, Jesse texted his mother and told her that he was leaving to hike the Santa Cruz Trail and would not be able to text her for a few days, although he told her that he would text her by October 2nd. This would be the last message sent from his phone. Jesse was captured on CCTV leaving the hostel at 4:30 in the morning on September 29th for the hike. He then took a communal transport and got off the Cachapampa entrance of Huascarin National Park. The hike would have taken him about 4 days and 3 nights, and you can go either from the east to west or from west to east. Jesse decided to do it from west to east, and he had already bought a return bus ticket from the other side. But Jesse would never reach his destination. He had also booked a flight to Bolivia for October 5th that would never be used. When Elisa didn't hear from him on October 2nd, she figured he decided to hike a longer trail. When few more days went by, Elisa started to get worried. On October 7th, she would find a charge from Apple on her credit card for an app that tracks expenses. This reassured her that Jesse was alright. However, as another week went by and Elisa didn't hear from him, she decided to check with Apple about the app purchased. She learned that the app had been purchased on 28th September and not on 7th October. She then immediately contacted the Canadian embassy to report him missing, but was told that a police report was needed for the Interpol to be alerted. After reporting him missing, on October 17th, she decided to go to Peru to search for Jesse herself. She managed to gather local teams and elite Israel-based search and rescue team to search for Jesse. As more details surfaced about Jesse's travels, more sketchy things came to light. First, the hostel he stayed in said that he checked in and was there, and then later changed their story to say that he was never there. Investigators now know that Jesse was at the hostel because a friend received a Snapchat of him at that hostel. Elisa has filed a criminal investigation against the hostel. It was also found that the registration logs on the trail were incomplete or missing. Elisa would later find out that the people who were working at the park that day were not employees of the park. When they were asked for the records, they provided forged documents where they had changed the entry sheet date from August 30th to September 30th. Moreover, their cell phone providers initially wouldn't reveal details of when and where the devices were last used. Mule drivers that frequented the trail had been reluctant to help the investigation. They come from a very close-knit community, and they believed that they might be blamed if Jesse's body is found on the trail. The elite search and rescue team from Israel known as the Magnus International Search and Rescue have searched the trails all the water bodies using remote-operated vehicles and have hundreds of hours of drone footage so that they could see if there was any disturbance in the soil, but have found nothing so far. They contacted nearly 200 travelers from around the globe, identified through scanned Instagram and Facebook photos to figure out who were on the trail on that day and who Jesse had met and spoken to. They found 2 hikers from France who had stayed at the same campsite that Jesse had on September 30th. They told them that on that day, Jesse seemed disoriented and told them that he was dehydrated and was suffering from diarrhea, headache, and vision issues. It is believed that Jesse may have been suffering from altitude sickness. He spent the night at the campsite and in the morning he seemed to be doing well. He made coffee and told the French hikers that he would continue on the trek. The French couldn't accompany him as they were coming from the east and heading to west. After that, Jesse was reported to be walking very slow and was seen by a number of hikers. The last confirmed sighting of him was on October 1st at 3:30 p.m. sitting on the side of the trail about a kilometer from Punta Union. It had taken him 8 hours to reach there from the campsite, a distance that her mother, who was not an experienced hiker, covered in only 2 hours. Some believed that Jesse may have wandered off the trail and succumbed to the elements. Someone could have then come across his body, robbed him, and moved him by donkey or horse to a remote location or thrown him into a body of water. His mother has made huge efforts to try and find him and has gone to Peru multiple times. She has done her own fundraising and sold off personal assets to fund the search efforts. Almost $2 million have been spent in his search, most of which have been funded by funds raised by Missing Children's Funds. Jesse Galganov is still missing and his family is still searching for his whereabouts to this day. The Rainbow Maniac. From 2007 to 2009, men in the city of Carapicuíba, Brazil were terrorized by the Rainbow Maniac. He earned that moniker because the victims were all gay and were clearly targeted for that reason. Carapicuíba is the home to one of the most vibrant gay communities in South America. The area is host to the largest annual gay pride march on the planet, and Patures Park had become a popular hookup spot until it became a stalking ground for a lunatic. The park has been witness to killings of 13 men since 2007. The victims, all gay men, were aged between 20 and 40. Most were shot once in the head, though one was beaten to death and another was shot 12 times. Their half-naked bodies were dumped in the undergrowth with a .38 caliber bullet in the back of the head and their trousers wrapped around their knees. Even though every murder was committed in open and in public, no one has been charged with the murders. Police officers investigated between the crimes and decided to step up nighttime patrols at the park. As the authorities analyzed the crimes, they came up with the assumption that the killer likely hated homosexuals. Police believe that the same murderer may also be responsible for 3 more deaths in the nearby Osasco, and that the killer could be a police officer in the state. On December 10, 2008, police arrested a retired state police sergeant, Jairo Francisco Franco, based on witness statements implicating him in a murder that occurred on August 19, 2008. The witness claimed to have seen Franco shoot a black gay man 12 times that night. Another witness told police that Franco often visited the park to look for gay men and victims. However, on 23 August 2011, Jairo Francisco Franco was released after the trial, having been declared not guilty by the jury by 4 votes against 2. No charges or conviction has been made since, and the case remains unsolved to this day. Marita Verón. Marita Verón lived with her family in San Miguel de Tucumán, Argentina. On April 3, 2002, Marita left her home to go see a doctor and was never seen again. 3 days later, she was actually found by police in the area of La Ramada, over 30 kilometers away, wearing shoes with heels instead of sneakers she had been wearing when she disappeared. It appeared that she had escaped from a sex party. Police left her on a bus that was headed to Tucumán, but she never reached her destination. Her family searched for her desperately and notified the police, but the police did not take the disappearance seriously. They told the family that she had likely ran away voluntarily with her boyfriend. A number of days later, a witness came forward and reported seeing Marita being pushed into a red car by 3 men. 3 weeks later, a prostitute told her parents that she had been sold to traffickers. Numerous witnesses claimed to have seen her the following days in several hostess rooms run by traffickers in the province of Tocumán. Since the police refused to help Marita's parents, they decided to do their own investigation. Marita's mother, Susana Trimarco, decided to infiltrate human trafficking gangs by pretending to be interested in buying women. Her investigation identified 3 La Rioja bars, Candy, El Candelejas and El Desafío, as fronts for prostitution where Marita could have been held. She gave this information to the police, who raided the places and rescued dozens of women who were being sexually exploited. One of the women freed during this raid reported seeing Marita at Candy with dyed hair and blue contact lenses. However, she said that Marita had been removed shortly before the raid. The search also found another lead when the alleged Madam of Candy, Lydia Medina, was heard to say, "Those fools are looking for her, and she's in Spain." Medina was arrested for unlawful deprivation of liberty and aggravated promotion of prostitution. Soon, information about a prostitution ring in Spain was obtained by the police. A raid of their places rescued 17 women, but Marita wasn't among them. In 2012, 13 people were arrested in connection with kidnapping and selling Marita to traffickers who forced her into prostitution. On February 8, 2012, all 13 were put on trial in a court in Tocumán. However, on December 11, 2012, a 3-judge Tocumán Provincial Court acquitted all 13 defendants of all charges, stating lack of concrete evidence. Attorneys representing Susana accused the 3 judges of corruption. The acquittal of defendants led to a widespread protests around Argentina. Anonymous people published the personal data, addresses, telephone and bank statements of the judges in Marita's case. The group also hacked government web pages. Numerous marches in support of Susana Trimarco were called in different cities of Argentina, with the people demanding justice for Marita Veron. Finally, a ruling by the Supreme Court of Justice would condemn 10 of the 13 accused to sentences between 10 to 22 years in prison. Unfortunately, none of those responsible spent more than 2 years in prison. Michelle Obama, Nobel laureate Adolfo Perez Esquivel, and others have presented their respect and support to Susana Trimarco, a nominee for Nobel Peace Prize, for her unrelenting work against human trafficking. While it is believed that Marita is alive, there have been no leads in her case since. Susana, meanwhile, continues her tireless search for her daughter. Luis Andres Colmenares. Luis Andres Colmenares was an economics and industrial engineering major student at Los Andes University in Bogota, D.C., Colombia. On October 30, 2010, Luis went to a Halloween costume party at a nightclub in the popular Zona Rosa in Bogota with his date, Laura Moreno, as well as Jesse Contero and several other friends and classmates. Luis, along with his friends, came out of the nightclub at around 3:30 a.m. Luis was tired and hungry, so he decided to get a late-night hot dog. Laura and Jesse went with him, while the rest of the group got Laura's SUV from the parking lot. After this point, nothing is certain. Laura and Jesse claimed that after buying a hot dog, all of a sudden, without any explanation, Luis threw the hot dog on the ground and began running towards El Virrey Park, which was about 10 minutes walking distance from the hot dog stand. Laura ran after Luis while Jesse stayed at the hot dog stand for their friends to arrive. Laura told police that she got off with Luis twice, but she wasn't able to calm him down. The second time, he pushed her away and then jumped into a drain located at the El Virrey Park. Jesse said that she was picked up by the group of friends, called Luis's cell phone, and Laura answered the call. She explained that Laura was frantic and told her that Louis jumped into the water channel, which was less than 50 centimeters deep, and that she was unable to see him anymore. It took them 2 hours to notify the police, claiming that after meeting up with Laura at the park, the group searched for Louis before notifying the police. They also alerted Luis's family and a formal search began. Oneida Escobar, mother of Luis, went to the park to look for her son at 6 a.m. after she was notified of Louis. In the meantime, the police and firemen were conducting an exhaustive search around the area without any results. Around 6 p.m., Oneida begged the fireman and the police officer to look again under the drift where, according to Laura, Louis jumped. After finding nothing, the firemen retired. Hours later during the night, a second group of firemen searched again, and this time they found the body of Louis about 400 feet away from where Laura said Louis had jumped, and in a place that had already been searched before. An autopsy was performed and it was found that Louis had a grade 3 of alcohol intoxication, which should have impaired him heavily and confirmed the hypothesis of an accidental death. He had suffered a single blow to the head and died from asphyxiation. The case was ruled as an accidental death and the body was buried. However, Luis's family refused to believe the theory. A second autopsy by Maximo Duco, former director of the same institute, hired by the Colmenares family, and research done by the prosecutor Antonio Gonzalez, concluded that instead of one blow, as the original autopsy stated, he had received 7 individual blows to the skull. There were pre- and post-mortem wounds and marks on his back and on his knees that contradicted the position he was found in. In October 2011, Laura and Jesse were arrested, accused of perjury and covering a crime. The prosecution produced a witness of the events, Wilmer Ayola, who stated that on that night he saw Laura running after Louis, eventually catching up to him and slapping him in the face. He then saw a truck stopping at the park where the drain was located. He stated that the truck driver, Carlos Cardenas, got out of the truck and hit Louis in the head with a bottle. Then Carlos and a group of friends kicked the victim while on the ground. After a few minutes, they tried to revive Louis but weren't able to, so they carried away the body on the truck. Ayola claimed he came forward because he had been threatened. He also explained that he was afraid because the partner that was with him that night, whom he identified only by the name of Kristen, had disappeared. Ayola added that Carlos offered 1 million pesos to Kristen in exchange for their silence and that he received a part of the money. With this statement, Carlos Cardenas was arrested on charges of aggravated homicide. When questioned, Carlos denied the accusations. The prosecutors stated in the trial files that they had intercepted conversations between Carlos and Laura about his family having important contact in the general attorney's office, so she should keep her calm. On June 19, 2012, the prosecutor explained that Kristen, the other witness identified by Wilmer Ayola, had been located and that he had been looking for protection from the police. The following day, Carlos and Laura's lawyer, Jamie Granados, came forward explaining that Ayola worked as a security guard in a building complex far from the site of the events, and that the records proved he was working there that night. He accused Ayola of perjury. In a radio interview the following day, Ayola explained that he had escaped his working place and that he signed the records after returning to work at 5 a.m., claiming he had proof of this. However, on October 22, 2013, in an interview with RCN News, Wilmer Ayola confessed that he had been paid to provide false testimony in support of prosecutors' murder theory. According to Ayola, he had been paid by the father of Luis Andres Colmenares. He also implicated the former prosecutor Antonio Gonzalez as participant in the complot of multiple false witnesses. He said that many people paid for this. Friends of Gonzalez, friends of Colmenares family, every witness was on the payroll. On February 20, the judge ruled Laura and Jesse were not guilty. The case officially remains open and unsolved.